So, Justice League Unlimited versus Young Justice. This is, my personal question as to which is better because when I watched Justice League Unlimited, I fell in love with that show. But when I was watching Young Justice, I didn't know exactly what to expect. I wasn't expecting a great, time or, an amazing show. I was expecting, nothing. And what I got from Young Justice was just a mess of a show. So let's get into it. Let's start with the animation. And I gotta say, if you put them side by side, in my eyes, Justice League Unlimited has the better style and animation. And I know a lot of you are gonna start raging already, but hear me out. I'm not saying Young Justice's animation or anything is bad or anything. I think it's great, but I don't think it has any personality with it. If you look at Justice League Unlimited, there was thought put into the style. It wasn't, the style didn't look that way just, for whatever reason. There was a reason behind it, and the reasoning was actually really awesome, and it made sense to me. If you think of comic book characters, if you think of superheroes, what comes to mind? Oh, mythology, Greek mythology, and that to me is what it is. That is what superheroes are. They're are as much of a mythology as the mythology in Greece. The Greek mythology and our comic books are so much in common, and Justice League Unlimited kind of highlights that, and it works, and I love it. Well, Young Justice just looks just like a bland animated show that just looks as good as any other animated show that could do the same thing almost. But it's not to say that it's breathtaking at times, but it just doesn't have that same personality or attention grabbing as Justice League Unlimited has. The next thing that I want to talk about is the characters. In a superhero comic, or in a superhero show or whatever, it is important to have good characters. And let's start with Young Justice characters. I think they're the most annoying group of characters I've ever seen on TV. They've gotten better in season 2, but that's not really saying much because they're still the same. They're just carbon copies of the other characters. It makes sense for Superboy to be a clone of Superman because that's what he is. But do we really need Robin acting like Batman all the time? Do we really need Miss Martian, mimicking John Jones? Do we really need that kind of stuff? And yeah, they should. I get that's what sidekicks are, but they should also have a personality that differs. And the only personality that kind of stands out to me is Miss Martian. That was the only personality that felt different than the others. The others just felt the same. Robin felt like Batman, and you could argue, yeah, he's been around Batman, but at least give him something that's different than Batman. Because there's times that it just seems like he's just Batman anyways. But really, I also find that none of the characters had a good chemistry with each other. They just kind of were there, and you never see a sense of variety or camaraderie. While in Justice League Unlimited, the characters were colorful. They all had issues. They all had different opinions of each other, and they all were opposites. Batman was the cynical, depressed character, while Superman was the upbeat Boy Scout. And then you had other characters that kind of went all over the place. There was Huntress who was so grieving with vengeance that she got kicked off the team. That was something that was interesting, that she got kicked off a team for wanting vengeance, while Speedy got kicked off the team because he was doing his own things at times, which was a reason to kick someone off, but it didn't have as much weight as Huntress did when she had to leave the team. And each character had its own personality and thoughts. A lot of the superheroes didn't like Question in Justice League Unlimited. They thought that he was a conspiracy theorist. They thought that he was seeing things that weren't there, while Batman actually respected Question and was like, well, he could find things that most people can't find, but everyone thought he was an extreme nut job. And then Young Justice, you never really get this idea. The only time it ever comes up is between Nightwing and Superboy, but even that is just glazed over, and is just made okay later on. So that's a problem I have with Young Justice. While Justice League Unlimited did more with the characters, than they even paired them differently. They also paired them in a very unique way. There was an episode where two superheroes couldn't get along because one was jealous of the other. That was really interesting to follow, because most of the time you think that she's gonna betray Supergirl, but this character never did, and she just was like, well, I don't like how everyone loves her but not me, but I would never betray her regardless. So to me, ultimately, Justice League Unlimited had the better character development and character variety than Young Justice. I just found Young Justice to be bland, and even some of the characters that they introduce, like Batgirl for example, is only in like 2 to 4 episodes, and even then, it's not any noticeable roles. It's just she's there, and then you forget about her. So, and it's one thing if it's a background superhero, but they plaster her face on like DVD cases and all that stuff. So they made her seem as if she had a presence, but she never really did. The the other thing I want to talk about is the story. And this is another issue I have with Young Justice again. The stories were good in Young Justice. They were fine. They were gripping when they needed to be, but ultimately, I thought Justice League Unlimited was way more interesting and way more, thought-provoking. Young Justice just kind of went on basic stories and basic ideas and never took them a step further, while Justice League Unlimited took things a step further with them. For example, the Cadmus arc. In Young Justice, they don't really, address the tensions between the government and the Justice League, but in the second season, that kind of comes to a head, but they only focus on. They got a space station that doesn't have a weapon, by the way. They have a space station and they have superpowers. And that to me is such a basic form of conflict that, they don't push it anywhere. That's reason enough for everyone to not like them. While in Justice League Unlimited, they kept adding to the reasons why the government doesn't like the Justice League. It wasn't because they have superpowers or a space station. It was because they were headstrong. They acted in a very reckless, maybe not reckless, but in a very irrational pattern that the government felt that they couldn't control. They felt afraid by them. While in Young Justice, you never get the sense of that the government felt that way. You just felt that they just didn't like them because they have superpowers. Yeah, you can say that, in a sense that it's also saying that they're afraid that they don't have the power to control them, but they never really go anywhere with that idea, while Justice League Unlimited kept pushing it. It was because they have a weapon on the space station. They are irrational. Superman was brainwashed at a point in the Superman animated series that they didn't forget. They brought up a few times that, hey, you were brainwashed once, what's going to stop anyone from brainwashing you again? And that is an actual legitimate concern. And also, it was just, some of the action that they do make the government, not trust them. To the sense where you also kind of side with the government. You can kind of sympathize with the everyday man that sees the Justice League come down and, take care of everything. There was an episode where the laser cannon was hijacked and was used against a base, and it eventually caused the Justice League to have to evacuate the city because of that. And as they were evacuating, everyone that they were helping didn't like them because they were like, well, this came from you guys. You did this to us because you had that stinking laser. If you didn't have that laser cannon, this wouldn't happen. And that is a very validated point. It was to the point where the government wanted the superheroes to disband and not be vigilantes anymore. They just want them to have an everyday life, which is an okay thing to have. While Young Justice never really played with this idea or took it anywhere. It was just, oh, they have superpowers. But see, viewers, the government's insane and they're mean, and it's ridiculous. They didn't really go anywhere with these ideas, while Justice League Unlimited pushed them, and it was a great tension. You almost felt kind of, questionable with these superheroes you very look up to. There was even a scene where Superman was contemplating a strategy to get payback for what the government did to him and to Supergirl. And Green Arrow was instantly saying, well, they have a point for what they did, because I have no powers, but I'm scared as shit when I'm up here. And that is, great. I mean, even the superheroes, even the superheroes that don't have superpowers feel threatened by other superheroes in the same team. They had that same conflict, and they were just like, well, maybe, people should have the means to take you down in case you do go crazy, because that is a reasonable fear. And it played with that Cold War so much more than Young Justice ever did. And even Batman felt, a little bit of a fear that the Justice League might lose their heads and they might go overboard. That's why he even enlisted Green Arrow. Young Justice never really had that feeling, in my opinion, and it just kind of fell short with it. And the other issue I have with Young Justice is the payoffs are weak. I mean, there's really nothing that worked in that show. I mean, they built up this conflict between Superman and Superboy, and the resolution was so weak that it was just like, well, we can't really give you an explanation as to why Superman was, acting the way he is, but hey, it's A-okay right now. And it's like, okay, so already Superboy is all ready to forgive Superman for being a dick to him. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it just didn't, I just couldn't follow how Superman, who kept avoiding Superboy the entire time, and pretty much to the point where he disowned him or ignored his existence. And even Batman was like, maybe you should talk to the guy, get to know him some more. Maybe he isn't as bad as you think. And, the only reason why he acts that way that we get is, oh, it's a Lex Luthor creation, we can't trust it. But, there has to be more to it than just that, because it's a very shallow thing to say. And even Batman questions it, saying, there's more to it than just because of Lex Luthor, there's more to it than that. And they never explain it. They don't go back to it. They don't even talk about it. It's just, it comes up and then it leaves. So, that is my only complaint I have. That's my complaint I have with Young Justice, is the payoffs are weak. The characters are just kind of, eh. So, ultimately, I think Justice League Unlimited is the better series. And my last and final point I want to talk about is the villains. In Justice League Unlimited, the villains had a very cool name. They had the Legion of Doom, the Secret Society. What did Young Justice have? The Light. Oh, that's so threatening. The Light? Oh man, just hearing that makes me shudder. And that is kind of disappointing. I mean, because if you think about it, what do you associate with evil or bad? You associate that with darkness. And what do you associate with good? Light. And yeah, you could argue that, well, they don't see themselves as bad guys, but honestly, come on. They only call themselves the Light, so they have that stupid saying of, we will bring them into the light, they will see the light, ooh, the light. And that to me is not a reason enough to have that name. When you look at Justice League Unlimited, the League of Supervillains were called the Legion of Doom. That's a very threatening name, and a very good one at that. If you want to say they didn't want to go campy or cliched or anything, which I kind of don't think it is. I don't think Legion of Doom is campy or cliched, but if that's a reason why they didn't name it that, why not just keep the Secret Society? What was wrong with that name? I mean, that was ominous and threatening, and it had a darker meaning, but it could be interpreted either way. So I don't really get why the Light is such a good name for these group of villains, but that's just my opinion. So feel free to comment if you have any opinions that differ mine, or if you agree or disagree, that's cool too. feel free to comment and respond. So have a good day, and yeah, Justice League Unlimited is I recommend that show. Go watch it.